Number one, age. It's all in your head. Yeah, you may have to make a few adjustments in life. I can't run a marathon anymore, but I'll tell you what, my mind goes a mile a minute and I've got so much left to contribute. Don't let ageism compress your life into a little dark box. This is your time. This is maybe your most precious time in life. Feel free to speak up. Start a podcast. Be an Instagram star. You know what? The social media world is a wild, wild west, and uh, part of it is definitely about us gray-haired influencers.
Discussions in this show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult your investment professional before making important investment decisions. Securities offered through registered representatives of Cambridge Investment Research, a broker-dealer member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services through Cambridge Investment Research, Inc., a registered investment advisor. Cambridge and Houston First Financial Group are not affiliated.
Welcome to Money Matters with Chris Hensley, where we spotlight financial literacy issues in the Houston community and beyond. And now your host, Chris Hensley.
Today on Money Matters, we're diving into the extraordinary tale of Diane Gilman, the Jean Queen herself, who has redefined the fashion industry and her own life by mastering the art of reinvention. As we age, society often whispers it's time to slow down, but Diane's journey shouts a different truth. From groundbreaking designs that resonate with every generation to transforming personal trials into triumphs, Diane's story is a testament to the power of resilience and innovation at any age. Join us as we explore how Diane Gilman's turned her golden years into her most vibrant chapter yet. Don't miss this episode. It's time to redefine what you thought was possible in the second act of life. Diane, welcome to Money Matters.
Hi, Chris.
I'm so excited to have you on the show. You know, you had me recently on your new podcast called Too Young to Be Old, and I really enjoyed that conversation. I think we had a really good time there, and I extended the invite for you to be on this show. And so I'm just super excited to introduce you to our guest here. I want to just dive right into it. What inspired you to start the Too Young to Be Old podcast, and how does it reflect with your journey in the fashion industry?
30 years on television and always telling my story. And I thought to myself, could I take those communication skills and do something a little less abusive to my body? Because the schedules for tele-retail are insane. You're in the studio at 9 p.m., you get out at 3 a.m., you're back in the studio at 8 a.m., you work until midnight. There's no food, there's no water, there's no restaurants around you, there's no place to really relax. So I thought, at 78 years old, that's really pushing it. Could I take my talent for speaking on air and do something more inclusive for my age group, and at the same time, I would like to talk about more than just one subject, selling jeans. So I resigned. I walked away from 30 years on TV, and I thought, well, I don't know. What am I going to do with myself? Maybe no one's going to want me. Within 4 weeks, I already had my first solid offer to co-host a podcast. I learned how to do it, and then I thought, you know what? I'm going to watch female anchors on MSNBC and CNN. I'm going to see how they do it. I'm going to see how they handle guests. I'm going to see how they ask their questions. And no worse a person to ask than a politician who doesn't want to answer. So what do you do when you don't get the right answer? How do you go back in there? And so I made a fun game out of it. I made kind of a science out of it. And if I'm going to do something, I'm all in.
Yep.
And I wanted to be highly professional. So I guess I'm just beginning to find my sea legs on that. And then I got an offer to write into an international women's anthology book that's a really big deal and will premiere in June. So I'm writing part of my life story for that. Then I got asked to co-write a treatment, I think you call it a treatment, for a screenplay of my life that could be like lifetime. So I'm doing that. And my friends all say, oh my God, you're exhausting us. Just talking about it is exhausting. But I find it exhilarating. And I think what you have to do at a certain point in life, after 55, certainly as you start to face retirement, do you really want to just step back and do nothing? Do you want to have no voice? I wanted a voice. I wanted activity. I wanted productivity. I wanted to leave a legacy.
I love it. I love it. A lot of good stuff there for listeners. I mean, for the idea that you're finding your sea legs on the podcast, you seem like you've been doing it for years already. And I love the fact that anything that you go into, you're going all in, and you
Oh,
went
yeah.
back and you started listening to some of the styles of the anchor women on shows. You saw where they had to deal with some politicians and how difficult that could be. You're doing so much stuff right now. You talked about this anthology that's going to be coming
Oh,
out.
it's going to be great.
The possible screenplay here, and so we will make sure to have notes to that in the podcast there. But I love the idea that you said you just wanted to have a voice. It's really just not stopping, and I think that's a good thing for our listeners to hear about. You talk about this in your book, Too Young to Be Old: Love, Learn, Work, and Play as You Age. What inspired you to write that?
Ageism. Look at the
Mm-hmm.
ageism against Biden. Look at a guy and I don't want to bring in politics full throttle, but here's a guy that has white hair, like me, is older, like me, we're 3 years apart, is consistently criticized for his age when the guy against him is just 2 years younger but dyes his hair and uses a lot of makeup. And ageism has no place in this society. 52% of America is over 55 years old. We are officially a gray nation. When you look at all our politicians, I think maybe 1-2% of them are below 45, maybe. So you almost have aged politicians hating themselves and creating ageism. And I hate that concept that, well, if you're older, you must have lost your mind or you can't do anything big and sweeping anymore. Don't be ridiculous. So, my thing is fighting societal attitude, and it's a big battle. And I'm beginning to see that there are other women out there that are devoting what I call your third act to dealing with just that. And I find it for myself. Even I find that I've obviously have a PR agency that's behind me, and they'll go to pitch me, and a major news network will say, no, we don't want someone that old. She can't have anything to say. So that kind of fuels my fire. And if you think to yourself that, for instance, a good friend of mine that I was on TV with, Iris Apfel, lived to be 102. She was called the accidental icon. She had a huge following, like over 1.2 million women. She really became famous after the age of 80. And that woman was just a dynamo. And so I think we have to, all of us who care, who find this passion, reshape the attitudes towards growing older. It's imperative. Half your population, people, is gray haired, and that should not equal negativity. That should not equal shove you aside. I'm sure in your own way, at some points, you must feel that yourself.
Oh yeah, I mean, I in the past year or once COVID started, I saw ageism. I work a lot with retirees, and I saw that the people that they were voluntarily letting go during COVID were the people who had gray hair, who had the wisdom, who were income heavy. But
That's
of
the
course,
point. Yeah.
yeah, and you see it, but how do you? It's very hard to prove, but it's I statistically I can sit there and see it as it's happening and unfolding. Very, very important thing that you just talked about, and that idea of fighting societal attitudes, reshaping people's attitudes. My grandmother is 96 years old and she is still on Facebook. So we, this is
There you
something
go.
you shared the lady that is 106. We're right here in Women's History Month as well. Reflecting on your fashion career and your personal challenges, what advice would you give to women about embracing change and adversity?
Whew. Well, I will say that again, I try not to be political, but I don't like it when you give me something I fought for and then
Mhm.
you don't even have the courtesy to say, let's vote on it, let's make it a referendum, we're just taking it away from you. So, my advice for women on International Women's Day was take a look, if you are American, take a look at what's going on around you and ask yourself, is this okay with you? And if it isn't, there's one thing you can do: get out and vote. You know, we all were out there marching around, burning our bras in the 70s, but we got something very valuable. And I will say, women, and I did make this very, very clear in my podcast, women are not in a good place. First of all, 80% of all single women are going to die at something close to poverty level because we're always told some man is going to take care of your money for you. There's never any initiative to see yourself as the commander in chief of your financial life. Then again, the women that are still working only make 77% of what a man makes. And then again, you trust us to be 50% of the workforce, but you don't trust us with our own bodies? I'm a little confused here. I just want to get this straight. Um, and I got a lot of, I had a lot of women saying yes, 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 but I had some women that it just made them very angry. So there is, within my generation at least, I was raised that you didn't work unless you were like mentally ill or something. So I guess I was mentally ill. And you, and there would be a lot of people that would agree with me on that one. And you just let a man handle your life. And I used to think to myself, the thought of being married and going to a man and saying, may I please have my allowance for the week, was like being a child. Even as a child, I was working in a local fashion boutique at 9 years old, just honestly dusting the shelves and sweeping the floor just to be around fashion. So I had to go against my family to have a career in fashion. I never got one dime of help. I never asked. I did it all on my own. And when I look back, I think to myself, even though I did it all on my own, every partner I sought out for whatever project it was a man. And those men were good at numbers. I wasn't. I was a money generator. They were the money collectors. And guess what? I never got what I was due until the very end, when I had very good legal representation. So I think women tend to take a back seat to their own financial lives. That's not a good thing. In terms of fashion, I got into the fashion game. I dressed rock and roll stars in the 60s and the 70s. Cher and Janis Joplin and Gracie Slick and the Jefferson Airplane, Sly and the Family Stone, Jimi Hendrix, Rod Stewart. A lot of fun. And they came to New York to be professional, got discovered by Bloomingdale's. But I don't think that women were anything more than an anomaly in the fashion industry. You know, when I grew up, and I was born in 1945, there actually were no, apart from Coco Chanel, who was then banned from France for what, 25, 30 years because of Nazi sympathies. There were no female designers. They were all men, like Christian Dior, Balenciaga, Yves Saint Laurent. And so I really grew up in a world where there were not very many opportunities for women. You kind of got a break there in the clouds, and the sun shone through a little bit in the 60s. But even today, if you look at every large fashion house, it's owned by a man, not a woman. And
Well,
once again, most of the designers in this day and age are men for women's clothing. Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that comes out in the book is that you were a trailblazer in this space for that time. And you talk about that rebel spirit there. I'm going to pivot and I'm going to talk about something here. I'm going to talk about tattoos. So one of my very first tattoos that I got was my buddy stole a bottle of Indian ink out of the art room, and he gave me a jailhouse style
Oh
needle
my
and ink
God,
tattoo. And,
really?
I'm 49 and people are asking, well, would you cover that up? And I won't, because it has sentimental value to me.
Yeah, yeah.
You start your book with a story about a tattoo.
Oh God,
Can you
that was
share that story with
incredible.
listeners?
Yeah, so I was like 19 years old. I had to leave home at about 17 and a half, 18, to pursue my life because my parents had a very different vision for me, where I was going to wind up being a 700-pound recluse living on a mattress in their basement. So I just said, I've got a life to live. I know what I want to do. I don't know how to do it. Okay, so at that time, I'm maybe I was 20. I'm living in San Francisco. The music scene is crazy. I met and started doing all kinds of outrageous denim for Janis Joplin. So Janis Joplin has tattoos, and she got her tattoos from a very famous guy who recently died, may he rest in peace, Lyle Tuttle, who they used for the Illustrated Man, right? Lyle was tattooed head to toe. I'm not going any further on that one, but trust me when I say head to toe, I mean it. And he was a wild man, totally. So Lyle had a tattoo parlor in the Tenderloin district over the bus terminal, and that's where all the Hells Angels got tattooed. Well, that's where Janis got tattooed. So I wanted to get tattooed there. And I did. I got a little red beating heart with a drop of blood at the bottom and dragon wings on my left breast. And then when I got breast cancer at 72, they said, sorry,
Ah,
we can't save it. They saved a little part of it, not much. But that tattoo, that, when you're born, when I was in 1945, there were very few choices for women, even in the way you looked. So you looked like just a younger version of an older woman. It was the same clothing, the same stupid hairdos. This was freedom, getting a tattoo. I remember my somebody said to me, "Oh my God, you're never going to be buried in a Jewish cemetery with a tattoo." And it's like, I can live with it, okay? It's just not, this is not shaking my world. Um, and it was crazy. There were all these Hells Angels there getting tattooed. There was somebody from uh, one of the rock groups getting tattooed, and then there was little me. And you know what? I love the tattoo, and I kept it with me all my life until I had to give it up at the age of 72.
And I really like that story in the book, and that's the prologue. So for listeners who want to find out more, this was a place that was recommended to her by Janis Joplin. The guy who tattooed her was Lyle Tuttle, the guy that's the illustrated man on Ray Bradbury, the cover of that book. Very famous tattoo for anybody who knows about tattoos. So
Yeah.
very, very interesting story. I encourage people to pick up the book. That's just the beginning of it. We are bumping right here towards the end of the show. Diane, I have so much stuff I wanted to keep
Oh my
asking you, but we're
gosh.
getting towards the end here. What have I forgot to ask you that you'd like to share with listeners now?
I just would, I think that the one thing I would like to say is I'm now writing my third published piece. So this is going to be an anthology book, and it's called Women Who Thrive. It will be international. It will premiere on Amazon in June. There'll be whole bunches of publicity about it, but it's really fantastic. Um, 20 women from all over the world, each one of them talking about a crisis in their lives. And so I chose for my crisis, and if you live to be almost 80 like me, trust me, you've had many, but I chose breast cancer. And the one thing I would say, and it is an overall theme in my book, Too Young to Be Old, and my podcast, Too Young to Be Old, are two things. Number one, age. It's all in your head. Yeah, you may have to make a few adjustments in life. I can't run a marathon anymore, but I'll tell you what, my mind goes a mile a minute, and I've got so much left to contribute. Don't let ageism compress your life into a little dark box. This is your time. This is maybe your most precious time in life. Feel free to speak up. Start a podcast. Be an Instagram star. You know what? The social media world is a wild, wild west, and part uh, part of it is definitely about us gray-haired influencers. So if you want a voice, speak up. No one's stopping you, and certainly not at this age. So I think my last piece of advice is people can be talking in your ear all the time. They're always talking to me and saying, "I just don't understand you. Why are you working? You could be taking a cruise." I hate cruises. You know, like I don't want to hear your ideas. If you want to help me with my ideas and what I want to do with the rest of my life, but this time in life is legacy time. And so many of us are taught that this is a worthless time in life. Throw it away. Nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to get done. Oh, so not true. Well, read my book, Too Young to Be Old, and that way you will know. And I wish for all of you out there that you are always too young to be old.
I love it. I love it. Diane, we are right here at the end of the show. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed speaking with you. Have a good rest of the day. Listeners, go out and get that book and read it. Fantastic story there.
Chris, thank you so much. This was so much fun. We have so much fun together. This is crazy. I
I
love it.
love it.